and large, has rejected God. By and large, and when you reject God, and when you kind of you say we don't want God in the school system, we don't want God in the workplace, we don't want God anywhere, and we want, like, if you have a relationship with God, really we want you to be quiet about it and keep it to yourself. I think we're reaping some of what happens when we do that. So we do live in these times of uncertainty, but I want to say that God, in the times of uncertainty, in the times of trial, that God is trustworthy and God is faithful. And we can be sure of His good nature and of His outstanding character. That if we are open to Him, He will work in our lives. I believe that. And I believe that He is certainly, He's a strong tower that we can run to in times of trouble. And in times of trouble, we're saved when we run to Him, when we turn to Him. And I believe that if we choose to cling to Him and to hold firmly to His promises through faith, I believe that He'll bring us through every trial. Doesn't mean we won't have trials. Doesn't mean we won't have times of fire and times of upheaval. But it does mean that I believe that He will bring us through these things. No matter how big or no matter how life-changing these things may seem, or scary these times may seem. Some of us are in times of transition in our lives. Times where things are different than they have been in the past. Some of the things that we're going through aren't necessarily bad, but they're different. And as I was reading through Genesis 28, and I was reading about Jacob and seeing the time of transition in his life, I thought, how poignant and how purposeful I believe that this is for us today in the place that many of us are in. And I know myself in particular, it spoke to me. And so if you have a Bible, you can open up to Genesis 28, verse 10, and I just want to pray. Lord God, I ask you, Lord, that as we look into your word, that you would enrich us with your word, God. Help us to remember your word. Help us to hide it within us so that we might not sin against you, God. Lord, I pray that we would be men and women of faith and of your word. That we would be men and women that cling to you, God. To your promises. To who you are. God, we say this morning that we love you, and we ask that your word would bring transformation to us. That we wouldn't seek to use your word for our purposes, but that your word would really change us and rearrange our priorities in our hearts and our minds. I pray this in Jesus' name. In Genesis 28, verse 10, I just want to give you a little background before this. Jacob is we're going to look at today some of his life today. But before this portion of Scripture happened, Jacob had deceived his father, and he had pretended to be his brother. His father had really bad eyesight at that time, and he pretended to be his brother. He was born a twin, Jacob and Esau, and Esau was the firstborn. He came out first, and it says of Jacob that he came out holding the heel of his brother, like he wanted to come out first. And the firstborn in the culture of the day, the firstborn got the majority of everything. He got the greatest blessing. He got the majority of the inheritance. The second-born, they got something, but they got kind of the leftovers. The firstborn got a bigger portion. And through this all, Jacob and Esau, there seemed to be a rivalry, a sibling rivalry, even from the beginning. And if you come from a family where things aren't great, join the club, right? Like, there's a lot of us that are from families like that. You're not alone. And if you look and you read some of these Bible stories, you'll find that the families in the Bible were just as real as us. That's why I love the Bible, because they don't sugarcoat things. It doesn't sugarcoat things. It gives you, oftentimes it gives you the good and bad in people's lives. And it shows you how people have made mistakes, and at times they've rejected God. And ultimately, hopefully, they turned to God in some way. And Jacob ended up doing that towards later in his life, and we'll discuss some of that here. But so Jacob deceived his father. His mother put him up to it. You know, his parents, his father favored the older brother Esau, and his mother favored Jacob. And his mother said, you know, hey, your father's going to bless your brother. Go out, you know what? Go out and do this thing, right? Go out and go out and deceive your father and get the blessing. I'll disguise you. I'll make this food for you and go in and do that. Well, so he does that. He gets blessed, and then the older brother Esau hears about it, and he swears that he will kill his younger brother. And so you see there's a lot of tension in their family. You can see that there's lots going on there. So what's happened is, at this point, then the older brother, some time has passed, and the older brother has ended up marrying some other women that were from the nations around them, women that the parents didn't approve of. And so they married them. He's married these women, and Abraham, the father, has kind of accepted, you know what, Jacob is the one that will carry on the blessing of Abraham and the blessing of Isaac. And he's the one that's going to carry on the blessing of God in his life. And so he calls Jacob and he blesses him. And it's like he prays, it's like he's praying for him in some ways. And I want to tell you that the prayers of parents in their children's lives are so important. They're so key. And they are very effective. I want to say that to you. You may be a parent right now praying for your children, and you may think, God, do you hear me? Does this even matter? Does this make sense? But when you seek to be a man or a woman of God, and you pray for your children, your prayers are heard by God. I believe it. And they're effective in your children's lives. I know my mom came to visit, and my mom, I love her. She has prayed for me and my sister for years. My mom has always been kind of the stronger one in the family for faith. My dad has faith too, but it's more of a quiet faith. But my mom, through the years, she was the one, even through, my mom's not perfect, but through lots, she had faith and she prayed for us. When Mom came to visit us back in the spring, and she went to my daughter Noelle, because she was babysitting my daughter while I was at work and stuff. And she said, "Now, Noelle, where's your Bible?" That's very, very important to my mom, that my kids learn we have tried to read your Bible, but it's not taking, right? It's not. And so Noelle finds her Disney princess book. She finds that and she brings it to my mom. And she says, here you go. And my mom is like flabbergasted. And she says to me, when I get home from work, she says to me, Brandon, I asked Noelle where her Bible was. And she gave me this Elsa Frozen book, Disney princess book. And I actually started to laugh. My mom did not think that was funny one bit. She did not. She did not see any humor in that. And she read me right out. She really did. And so since then, she's like, you need to raise your kids. Your kids need to read the Bible. They need to know the Bible. And I believe that's important. I believe that is important. And so I was trying to sit them down, read to them from it. And Elijah seemed to kind of get it a little bit, but with Noelle, it wasn't going anywhere. It just wasn't. Well, I began to pray. And I began to say, God, just like I would think about it, and I think, like, God, Lord, I just pray that my kids would love the Bible. I pray that they would have a relationship with you from an early age. I pray that they would. And it's taken some time, but over the last 2 weeks, we have this little, it's like a cartoon Bible thing. It's age appropriate. It looks like a comic book almost. Over the last 2 weeks, they're like, I suggested it to her, and she is totally into it. Now, every night she's like, Dad, read me the Bible stories. Read me that. And she's really starting to love it and like it. And this is a little 4-year-old that's very strong-willed, that doesn't want to do anything that she doesn't want to do. But I believe that God is answering some of my prayers. And so as I believe that as Abraham has prayed and as he's blessed his son Jacob, it has had an effect on his son's life in a powerful way. And I believe is that you as parents, if you will take serious that call, and some of you have children that are adults now and everything else, well, pray for them. Still pray. God can, and He will do miracles in their lives. He will do good things in their lives. So, Abraham has blessed his son, Isaac has blessed his son, Jacob, and he sends him out. He says, go to Haran and look for a wife there. There's good women there for you. Right? And in Genesis 28:10, I think we have it up there, thanks. It says, Now Jacob went out from Beersheba, and he went toward Haran. So he came to a certain place, and he stayed there all night, because the sun had set. And he took one of the stones of that place, and he put it on his head, and he lay down in that place to sleep. And then he dreamed, and behold, a ladder was set up on the earth, and its top reached to heaven. And there the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it, and he said, I am the Lord God of Abraham, your father, the God of Isaac. In the land on which you lie, I will give to you and your descendants. Also your descendants shall be as the dust of the earth. You shall spread abroad to the west and the east, to the north and the south, and in you and in your seed all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Behold, I am with you, and I will keep you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have spoken to you. As I was reading this, I was thinking about another group of people that talks of in Genesis that they had tried to ascend to heaven. Right? If you remember the story in Genesis about the Tower of Babel, where they built this tower and they said to themselves, we will ascend to heaven. And in their own strength and in their pride of being man and in their own saying, you know, we're so smart and we're going to make our way to heaven our own way. And what happened with that? Well, God came down and he confused their languages, and the tower never got finished. It never got built. Here is a ladder coming down from heaven in Jacob's life through the grace of God and through the working of God in his life. If you remember in John, I believe it was John 1:51. Jesus says to Nathanael, Nathanael comes to him for the first time, and he says to him, truly, truly, I say to you, hereafter you shall see heaven open, and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. Jesus is talking about himself, and he's saying that basically, I am the gateway. I am the way. It's through me. What does it take to come to Jesus? It takes humility. It says, I can't do it on my own. It takes that humility that says, you know, it's by grace that I'm saved through faith and not of works, that anyone can boast. We're not like the people of Babylon where we say, you know, we're going to boast because we're doing this ourselves. We're making our own way. Jesus has come and he said, I am the way, I'm the truth, and the life. No one gets to the Father except through me. And so here we are back to Jacob, and he's seeing in this place angels ascending and descending from this place. And he hears God's promises. He hears God's voice speaking to him. Verse 16. I think we have it up there. And then Jacob, it says, awoke from his sleep. And he said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. God is here, and I did not know it. And he was afraid. And he said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. Then Jacob arose early in the morning, and he took the stone that he put on his head, and he set it up as a pillar, and he poured oil on top of it. And he called the name of the place Bethel, which means house of God. But the name of the city had been Luz previously. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if God will be with me and keep me in this way that I'm going, and give me bread to eat and clothing to put on, so that I come back to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God, and this stone which I have set as a pillar shall be God's house, and of all that you give to me, I will surely give a tenth to you. He declares this thing, I'm going to start to tithe to you, start to give to you. If you'll be with me, God, I will trust you in that. If you provide for me, for my needs. And he is so amazed at the presence of God in that place. Now I want to say something to you, that I believe that this is Jacob's it's the first recorded encounter that Jacob, as this kind of third generation, Abraham was his grandfather, Isaac was his father, now it's Jacob's turn. He's the third generation, and this is the first recorded time he's encountered the living God for himself. In a real way, in his own life for himself. This is the first time. And he stepped out, going into the unknown. He's stepping out. What is he doing? He's walking in obedience to what his father has called him to do, to leave Beersheba and go to Haran. He's stepping out in that. And really, I believe it's the call of God that his father had inspired him to do. It was important to Jacob to honor his father's wishes and to marry someone he approved of. I believe that Isaac, the father, had the heart of God. And this is that first encounter. Now, Jacob has just begun a tremendous journey into the unknown. I think this is the first time he's kind of left his parents' house. How many of you moving out of your parents' house, maybe you were like, this is kind of a scary thing? Maybe some of us maybe were like, good riddance, we're gone, we're out of here. Freedom, some of us were maybe a little bit like that. But for me, it was kind of a scary thing stepping out and leaving out on my own. I never paid bills for myself on my own. I never, I didn't know what rent was like or any of these things. I didn't know how to do it. Can one live on pizza pockets like for eternity? If you're not a good cook, lived on them for quite a while. But can one really do that? Right? Can one step out? And so for Jacob, he's at a time in his life where things are in upheaval. And he's going to a place that he's never really been before. Going very much into the unknown. And as he steps out, it's a journey of faith. As he steps out into it, what happens? Well, the living God meets him along the way at this little stop where he stopped, like a little Motel 6, right? Sounds like about Motel 6, doesn't it? Like just a rock for a pillow, that's about it, nothing else. Here he is on his journey in this kind of a tough place, but he meets God in that place. Has this amazing dream on this journey. I want to say this, that what's happened in his life? Well, Isaac has just blessed him. He's just blessed him. He's just let him go. And it's like the prayers of Isaac and the blessing of Isaac, the prayers of a righteous man availeth much, right? They will accomplish much. And once again, as fathers and mothers, if you will pray and you will bless your children, I believe they will accomplish much. And on that first step out, and then in the journey, he's encountering the living God for himself. Isn't that what we want as parents? We want that. We want our children to have what we had and more with God. Steps out and instantly comes into this. Maybe not instantly, but shortly comes into this encounter with the real living God. He's meeting with a God who is real, who is personal, who is concerned with the lives of men. I know for me, I encountered the living God at about 15. I'd been raised in a Christian home, told what I should do, read the Bible to over and over, enjoyed some of it, didn't enjoy other parts of it. But when I came into knowledge of the living God, the real God, it meant something to me. It transformed my life. And for Jacob, this is a life-changing, transformative experience. God is confirming to Jacob the promise. And he's confirming the same promise that he spoke to Abraham, his grandfather, and spoke to Isaac, his father. He's confirming it to him. And he's making it personal in his own life. He appeared to him and he said, I'm the God of your father and of your grandfather. I'm going to be with rewarding it, and he's renewing it in a way that is real for the third generation. And that's so important. Oftentimes in our church experience, especially when there's a move of God, there's real power in the first generation. There's a real movement of, what God is real, he's alive in our lives. The first Pentecostals, they called them holy rollers. They rolled on the ground. God, I believe that God did it. God caused them to roll. God caused them to do things that maybe at times seemed unordinary. But God was real to them. And the second generation comes along, and God sort of real, but unless there's that personal connection with God, that God, your God can't be, you can't just work through your parents to see God. You have to have your own living, real relationship with Him. When He's real, when He's alive, when you meet with Him and He confirms the promises that He may have given to your parents and your grandparents, it's real, it's good. He speaks to them of this land that He's going to give them, of His goodness, that He's going to have descendants. Now, Jacob isn't even married at this point. He's going to find a way. But God's already talking to him about descendants. Jacob is leaving the promised land, but God is talking to him about the promised land, and He's saying, you're going to return here, basically. He says, your descendants shall be as the dust of the earth. You're going to multiply. You're going to be great. And they will spread abroad from the west, the east, the north, and the south. They're really going to fill the earth. Your descendants will fill the earth. And then in you, all your descendants, all the families of the earth will be blessed through your seed, through your descendants. And ultimately, Jesus came from that line. And through Jesus, all the families of the earth are blessed. I believe that others will be blessed through us. I want to say this, that Jacob at this point was in a real time of trouble. He was listening to his parents, but in a sense he was also fleeing his older brother that wanted to kill him. And here he is, he's going into an unknown place. We're going to talk some about that. But here's the first thing God says to him. He says, I am with you. I am with you. That He is presence in his life. Presently, I am with you. Jacob has just left everything that he's known, and I am certain he would have felt alone. I am certain he's going off into the unknown. I am certain. Leaving his parents' house, leaving everything that he knew, I am certain he would have felt alone. God is saying to him, I am with you. And at times, maybe you will feel alone, and at times I felt alone. But I believe this, that God says to us, He's with us, that He won't forsake us. The next thing is the presence that Jacob's parents had been is no longer. He's leaving his parents. He's leaving what's comfortable, right? He's leaving, mom's home-cooked meals and all the comfort of home. Jacob's father, Isaac, was very, very wealthy. Extremely wealthy. Like, he would plant something and reap 100-fold. And he's leaving that, and he's alone, and where he's not even like sleeping in a hotel, he's sleeping on a rock. I mean, how alone and how uncomfortable must you feel in that place? He's leaving his parents, but God, I believe, will fill that hole. David said, I believe in one of the Psalms, when my father and mother forsake me, behold, Lord, you are with me. You're with me. And God was saying to Jacob, I'm with you. When we enter into relationship with the living God, we're promised that He's with us. Jesus says, I'm with you even till the end of the age. End of time. I'm with you. He's a present presence in our lives. Jacob woke from that dream and he said, wow, how great is God in this place. But God was really saying, I'm going to be in your life, not just in Bethel, not just in that place, but in your life, continually. My next point is, the next thing that God says to Jacob, He said, I will keep you wherever you go. I'll be with you. Future protection. He's future protection. I believe this is God addressing the fears of a young Jacob. Any of you ever lie awake at night thinking, what if? And you start to think of like the worst case scenario. Anybody? I've been there. But you know, he's probably dealing with some things in his mind, thinking, what if I come back and my brother kills me? What if he's following behind me and he's going to get me? Right? What if I go to Haran and I get there and nobody wants to marry me? What if, all these things? I believe that God is addressing the fears. I will keep you wherever you go. He's going to be future protection for Jacob. I will keep you. I will hold you. I will be with you. Wherever you go. Not just in this glorious, awesome place of Bethel where he had this great encounter with God, but everywhere. I think sometimes we have great encounters with God in church, and we leave church and we think, I got to get back to church so I can have that encounter with God. Well, God is with you where you're at. Not saying don't come to church, but God is with you. Jacob certainly had reason to fear. His brother Esau had sworn to kill him. But God's saying, I will keep you. I will keep you trusting me. I think the voice of God often has us confront our fears. And if we will stand on the promises of God, it will often lead us to reject our fears. To reject our fears and accept in faith what God has said. And I'm sure that Jacob had to deal with this. Later on in Jacob's life, he's going to meet his brother again. And he's filled with fear. And just before that, he has a remarkable encounter with the living God again. But here, and he has to reject fear at that point as well. And I believe that we, as people of God, are called to reject those fears and to step out in faith, even if it looks and it seems like the enemy is too great or whatever. You're up against too much. Even in the face of that, there's not many of us that today have people that want to kill us. I hope. There's not too many. But God is speaking up and He's saying, I'm going to keep you. I will keep you wherever you go. We may be unsure of where we are or where we will go, I believe this, but God will walk with us. He'll be with us. And Jacob is stepping out into that place of the unknown, into the place of unsure. What am I going to do with my life? What kind of job am I going to have? Right? What kind of, how will I support myself? How will I take care of myself? You know, all these things, they have to be crossing his mind. But God will walk with him. He will be the future protection. I believe future protection, future provision as well. Next point is, God says, I will bring you back to this land. And I believe that's guidance. That's His guidance. That God will guide you. When you're in a relationship with God, a living, breathing relationship with Him, God will guide you. I didn't realize this before, but I looked it up. And it said, I looked it up on several websites, and this seems like a lot. But it said that the distance between Beersheba and Haran, where he left his parents in Beersheba to Haran, the distance was 5,340 kilometers. Now, that seems very astronomical. Maybe that's more than reality, but it's a long ways. This is before cars, right? This is before really good highway systems. And so the journey is great. I remember traveling from Kansas City to here. And because before I moved here, I lived in Kansas City for 2 years. And I remember driving I had an old Oldsmobile Delta 88 boat of a car. But it was, when it ran like so smooth. It was so comfortable. I remember driving it and stopping between Kansas City and here, which is like about, I think it's around 2,000 miles in the car. And it took me 3 days of, very long days getting here. And I remember stopping at a rest stop and thinking like, God, protect me here, in the middle of the night. God, protect me, be with me here in this place, and guide me there, so I don't go off the wrong direction in some way and end up in the middle of Oklahoma somewhere or something like that, because it's easy to do that, especially at nighttime. But I believe that along this journey of such great distance, God will guide. And God will bring them back to the land. The other thing is Jacob. It says that Jacob didn't come back for 20 years. For about 20 years he was away, working for Laban, his father-in-law. He was away for that long. And over 20 years, you could start to think, wow, am I ever going to go back there? Am I ever going to go back to that place? But God, at the right point, told him it was time to go. And at the right time, He guided him back. This is a promise I believe that Jacob would hold on to over the years that he was away, knowing at some point, I'm going to come back to the promised land. At some point, I'm going to come back to the land that you promised me and the land of my father, my grandfather. The other thing is, Jacob may have thought, I might never be able to go back there to the place, because maybe my brother would kill me if I did. But at God's guidance, God would bring him back. My final point. God said, and he spoke to me, he said, I will not leave you. I will not leave you. I believe this speaks of God's dependability. Some of you have had friends that you think, wow, they're great friends. I'd rather have a dog. They're faithful, right? They won't leave. Jacob is, at this point, being sent away by his father for a time. Maybe feeling that his father isn't necessarily that dependable. Leaving everything that he knows. I believe this, that God is dependable. Others may leave you, but God is faithful. He will not leave. And I believe that God will be faithful to complete the work that he's begun within us. He's not going to leave us halfway finished. He will be faithful. I believe that in our times of uncertainty, God's words to us are, I am, I will, I will, I will. God spoke this to a young Jacob that needed confidence, that needed courage, that needed God in his life to make it through this huge journey. To know that God was for him. In closing, I believe this, that Jesus, he's that ladder to heaven. He's that way. That when we are in him, our access to the Father and to heaven, it's unhindered. When we are in him, we can say, in the same way that Jacob said, surely God is in this place, or really, surely God is in our lives. That it's because of him that we are able to stand. It's because of him that we're able to go through the things that we go through. He's in our lives and he's with us through the ups and the downs. And though we have an enemy that's roaring, seeking to devour, just as Jacob had an enemy, Esau, that said, I'm going to kill you. I believe that God is a very present help in times of trouble. I believe that greater is he that is in us than he who is in the world. And I believe that he is near to those that call upon him. He is the I am. He is so dependable. And I believe that he will. That he will be present in our presence. He will be present there. That he will be our future protection. I believe that he'll be our guidance. I believe that he won't leave us, that he's so dependable. Jacob probably thought, how can I? What can I do? Overwhelmed with maybe the obstacle and the task of his life. And God came to him and said, I am and I will and I will and I will. Will you stand with me this morning?